Wow, what an amazing time we are having today. I have with me Rotarian T.N. Subramanian. He is known as Raju in the world of Rotary. Hello, sir. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Vivek. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. You've just come back from the US after attending a COL. How has it been?
It feels good because it went well.
So to start with, it will be amazing to understand what, why, when, and if you can briefly describe the overall COL process, breaking down this entire jargon for just people to understand that bit.
Council on Legislation is a meeting held every 3 years where clubs and the board submit enactments for amending our constitutional documents. Now, there are 3 constitutional documents: the RI Constitution, the RI Bylaws, and the Standard Club Constitution. And these 3 documents can only be amended or altered or in any manner touched upon by the Council on Legislation, and therefore it can happen only once in 3 years. Even the board doesn't have the authority to amend the same, except by moving a special enactment before the Council on Resolutions if they think it is emergent and necessary to do so. So it's a very important meeting where representatives from all over the world of the Rotary World in all districts get together to decide the future of Rotary's constitutional documents for the next 3 years. The next COL is in 2025. So till then, whatever are the enactments that have been passed at this COL will remain effective and will continue to be effective until there is a change that has been sought to be made or will be sought to be made at the COL in 2025. I would call it Rotary's Parliament, which enacts the laws that governs Rotarians, clubs and districts for the next 3 years.
Wow. And how does the COL really affect the clubs as well as regular Rotarians like us?
Well, it doesn't affect you directly, but indirectly, there is a definite thing that affects you. For example, in the 2016 Council on Legislation, the representatives moved for greater flexibility of clubs. They gave greater authority to the already existing autonomy of the clubs. And that flexibility came through the enactment that was passed in that 2016. It made further progress in 2019, and much of what happened in the 2022 Council on Legislation is keeping the flexibility of clubs in mind. So in that manner, it will affect a Rotarian because it can determine whether how a Rotarian can stand for an elective office. All those things will be governed by the constitutional documents. To that extent, clubs and Rotarians will be affected.
And who is really qualified to be the COL chair?
See, it all depends who is going to be the president during the year that the COL is going to be held. So in 2025, whoever be the RI president has the authority to appoint the chair and the vice chair of the COL. Now, it is they who determine whether there are qualities, and what they find as qualities, I think they will know. I will not be able to answer that question. But they found in me the quality to be a vice chair, as they found in Ken Schubert the quality to be a chair. That Shekhar Mehta found that both of us were eligible and good enough to occupy these positions.
So one thing I can for sure say that, thinking on one's feet, quick wittiness, being a good communicator, fairness, I think all of those things are really handy, and it could be really understood that these things are the foundation of someone holding a chair like this.
Yeah, you need to have good communication skills. You need to have good knowledge of the constitutional documents of RI. You need to be a person who reads all the enactments and is ready with the enactments to understand what the enactments are seeking to convey. You need to be a very fair person while conducting the debate and not show any bias at all. And at times, humor always helps, which did even in this COL.
Wow. We'll keep that humor for some time, and I would love to understand more about that from you. How many COLs have you actually been to?
I was a member of the Constitution and Bylaws Committee in 2016 and therefore attended the COL as a member of that committee. In 2019, I was the chair of the Constitution and Bylaws Committee. So I attended that COL too in that capacity. And this time, the third time, I have been there as the vice chair. But one regret that I have never gone there as a representative to propose enactments or oppose enactments. That's a regret.
You have been directly promoted. Can I say that?
No, I don't know that it's a promotion or otherwise, but it depends on how one looks at it. I think it's an experience more than a promotion.
Awesome. You rightly spoke about the fact that there's so much of reading that has to be done. So if I may ask, what is the kind of preparation that you actually had to delve into prior to you landing in the US?
See, as a vice chair, the chair and the vice chair along with the staff have to prepare ourselves for this COL. So there have been consistent meetings held over the last 2 years on Zoom because physical meetings were not capable of being happening. and it used to last for an hour, hour and a half, and where we would actually look at all the enactments, understand the enactments, have meetings with the Constitution and Bylaws Committee for them to vet these enactments, because ultimately they decide whether the enactment is defective or is capable of being sent to the COL for consideration, and in which none of us have a role. It's only the COL 3 members who vote. All of us can have our say, but not a right to vote. So it has been a whole lot of preparation, and this year has been different. This year has been difficult. This has been an experience from the last 2 COL. Hard preparation by the staff as well as all of us has gone into what the COL has been this year.
Wow. What was so different in this COL as compared to previous COL?
I will tell you the difficulties. One, COVID and the fear of COVID for many who did not like to travel because they are senior or otherwise. Two, the difficulty in obtaining US visa, which became a major issue for many people who wanted to travel but did not have a visa. And so many could not attend. For example, from our country, I think 50% of the delegates could not attend because of a lack of visa. Some of them had a visa, but they had a fear of coming into a crowd of 300 plus who were physically going to be present. So we had to actually balance the fact of physical participants along with those who had to come virtually. So for that, a lot of technology had to be involved, and the technology had to be worked on, improved, and then got done for the COL, which has happened for the very first time, where there has been a hybrid meeting, where there has been physical participation along with virtual participants, and that has been a challenge. It was a challenge, but ultimately the challenge was overcome thanks to our brilliant staff at Rotary International. I don't want to name one of them or two of them and give them credit, because I think then I'll be doing injustice to the others. But I think the staff have done an amazing job in getting the right people for the virtual participation like Zoom and Lumi, and also Teams for the purpose of putting in all the enactments or the amendments for everybody to follow. The only difficulty, which I think Vivek is a major difficulty, is that time zones are different. We met in Chicago time 9 a.m. in the morning to 5 p.m. in the evening. Now at this point of time, in Japan or in India, at an odd hour, it's a sleeping time. It's actually night time in that and in Australasia. So those people really kept away to come and attend the COL and make their presentations and also present their arguments for or against. And which was a challenge for them. It was a challenge for us as in the chair, because we had to identify them, which was made possible because of an iPad which was given to us, which will show who are the people with the green flag or the red flag who are wanting to speak for or against, etc., or with the yellow flag asking a point of order. So it has been an amazing experience and a difficulty which has been overcome, which I believe is what Rotary is all about, that the word impossible is not a word existing in human mind, and definitely not in Rotary. This COL has proved that effectively.
This is such an inspiring answer from your side. One of the thoughts that comes to my mind immediately basis your response is that Rotary is a very, very agile organization. 3 years prior to the pandemic, the level and depth of technology that the senior leaders in Rotary are using today, they were far from it. When I'm saying senior leaders, I also refer a lot of our district leaders across the world. How do you describe this agility now that you've seen this entire hybrid thing working?
Well, it's an indication for the future.
Okay.
It is very possible now that we can even meet virtually for a larger gathering and ensure that we succeed in the progress of that meeting and doing well in that meeting. It augurs well that we can even improve on the technology that we have used here, and we could use better technology the next time. For example, Lumi. Lumi was used only for voting. Zoom was used for connectivity and for them to be there presence both visually as well as by audio. And Teams was done for the purpose of putting in all the enactments as well as the amendments and the statements of opposition, etc., which were given by the board or by districts. So all that used to be on Teams. It was available. So there was physical copies become redundant, and it will be technology, either an iPad or a laptop on which you will store everything and work on it, thereby reducing of what you have to carry when you go even for a physical meeting. So I think a lot of positives that I see from this COL.
Receives the complaints of the Rotary Club of Islamabad, Capital Hill, Pakistan, and the Rotary Club of Islamabad, Downtown Pakistan, concerning the election of the 23-24 Governor of District 3272, based on the report of the Election Review Committee. A. Points that the clubs have failed to present evidence to support the allegation of campaigning and canvassing. you are not considering this question at all because the appeal is not on question A at all. B. Finds that there is sufficient evidence to support the allegation that the e-voting process was manipulated by the governor by deliberately preventing clubs from gaining access to the correct voting link so as to assist one of the candidates, which conclusion is also supported by the findings of a local inquiry panel created to look into these allegations. C. Upholds these two complaints, voids the election of Rotarian Salman Mubarak and declares Rotarian Masroor J. Sheikh to be the 2023-24 Governor of District 3272. D. Given the serious nature of his election-related misconduct, agrees that Rotarian Tazim Ahmad shall no longer be considered a past officer of Rotary International and is ineligible for future RI appointments. Please remember, Section A is not the subject matter of this appeal.
And now moving to the next leg, we just saw a video clipping on election-related misconduct that actually happened in RID 3272 of Pakistan. What exactly was the issue and how did you really deal with it?
Vivek, it was an election complaint filed, and this was voting from the same IP link for a large number of clubs who were not together, who were far apart. And they came to a conclusion that the election had been manipulated and they set aside the election. Now, under the RI bylaws, when such a decision is taken by the board and the board accepted that decision and set aside, approved the decision of the election review committee and found that the conduct of the governor was unbecoming of him being a past officer and therefore considered him not to be a past officer, thereby making him ineligible to hold any RI or TRF position. This can be challenged under the RI bylaws. So the club challenged this by way of an appeal to the COL. Now that has to be done within a certain period. I won't get into the technicalities of what it is, but it was within the time limit prescribed for an appeal to be validly made to this COL. It consists of concurrences to be taken from not only your district, from outside district and clubs. So all that was found to be in order, and the General Secretary placed it for consideration before the members in the Council on Legislation. That was the appeal that was placed, and I think it is historical because I believe that there has been no such appeal that has been placed in the COL for a substantially long period of time. This is what I was made to understand. So to me, therefore, it was first time where something like this was being considered. So the staff and I had to work on it to be more careful in what we present. And if you heard that presentation of mine, I was trying to place all the facts in a perspective without showing any bias so that they knew what they had to do. We placed the bylaws before them. We placed the facts of the decision before them. And then there was 5 minutes for the club who had made the appeal to make their presentation and 5 minutes for the board to make their point of view. And the board was represented by Director Venkatesh. And then they had to immediately cast a vote for such appeal. There is no debate. Representatives have to decide based on the two arguments advanced, one by the club and one by representative of the board. And then it was voted upon.
My goodness, very, very elaborate and in-depth process, and that shows very, very high degree of transparency. And I could see, while I read through the minutes myself, I could see that issues like this are there from so many different countries across the world.
Yes, they are, but largely from our part of the world or South Asia.
Okay.
Very unfortunate, but that's true.
Did your vocation of being an accomplished lawyer that you are actually helped you in managing the complexities that are involved in the COL?
This is a loaded question. First, you call me an accomplished lawyer. I don't know where I am. I think it did help because it was easy for me to understand the enactments, and having been on the Constitution and Bylaws Committee for 4 years, the bylaws were something which I was very, very familiar with, which helped me to appreciate and understand each of the enactments that are being presented. And that also, as a lawyer and having seen how courts operate, it also helped me in the process of being fair and ensuring a proper debate, in the sense that I would always ensure that there are at least 2 speakers speaking for and 2 speakers speaking against before the enactment is put to vote. But there were occasions when there were no speakers coming forth at all. So then it will go to vote immediately. Or if there are only speakers holding a red card, which means they are opposing the enactment, then also probably the discretion will be exercised and then you will ask for a vote immediately.
Okay. Did matters get heated up? How do you really ensure decorum as well as time management?
This was very unlike earlier councils. This was a very, very responsible set of representatives who were in their best behavior, both in the venue and in physically as well as virtually. So there was really no heat generated. Of course, during an argument, there is bound to be somebody who tells me, sir, you are wrong. But that's fine. He is bound to tell me, raising a point of order, etc., etc. And I don't think there was any disharmony. I don't think there was any ill will. I don't think there was any heat that created during the entire session. I thought the bonhomie was fantastic. And I realized that when after each session going for coffee, when the delegates would come up to you and talk to you, including the guy whom I had shot down, saying that, no, I find your point of order not in order, he would still come and have a cup of coffee with me.
Wow.
It really showed that there was no heat at all.
And how was it addressing the large gathering at the COL?
Oh, it was an awesome experience. The first session was a little nervy experience. I can say that now, though I may not have shown it because the mask was on, nobody may have been able to find out. But after that, because I had to manage those 190 plus who are on virtual and also those who are in the room. So I was wondering how it is all going to happen, how will it work. So getting used to that working took me about half an hour. After that, I think it worked like a sync. And I think the support that I got from the staff, John as well as Maureen from the staff side, and the big moral support that I got from a two-time chairman of the COL, 2016 and 19, Duan Benton, really helped me to be my calm, comfortable self for the rest of the session. I don't think I was too worried thereafter for anything that can happen, though nothing really happened which required too much of attention.
Stunning. So what was really your moment of pride while you got this opportunity to chair the entire event?
I don't think it's a moment of pride because I felt very bad that my friend Ken Schubert was not there to chair the session. We are good friends and we have worked together for 2.5 years to make this COL a success. So having him not there was a moment of worry and not a moment of pride at all. And I'll tell you the worry, because the previous day on the 6th, I was with him sharing an Indian malt which I had carried for him, which he loves, and also had dinner with him. So when he tested positive the next morning, it was a source of worry for the staff and others whether both of us would be out of commission. Therefore, I had to isolate myself on the 7th, get myself tested on the 8th morning, and fortunately I tested negative. And then I tested again they again tested me to ensure that I was not positive, I was negative. So to me, therefore, this was a very exciting session. It was excitement because I had lost Ken to be there for the guiding force of the opening session, so I could see how it would happen, realizing that it was a larger responsibility on me. But the moment of pride, according to me, I don't know if it's a matter of pride, but I think it would be an honor and a privilege that has been bestowed upon me for first being appointed the vice chair by President Shekhar, and secondly, being able to perform the duties as the vice chair in the absence of the chair, and the COL really going well with people speaking well about the conduct of the Council on Legislation. So more than pride, I think it is a privilege and an honor, I think, which I have had for myself.
Wow. I consider this to be a blessing by itself. The fact that you tested negative, that itself is a blessing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So how was
probably the Indian immunity, the Bel Puri and the Pani Puri.
So how was your overall experience as a vice chair?
Amazing. It always was a great experience, even when Ken was around as a chair. Ken was even then around when we had to meet in our council ops meeting, which was held every day in the morning and sometimes if necessary in the evening, but really not much. Ken used to be there on Zoom. So we always had the benefit of his experience with us. Overall, a phenomenal experience, an experience that I personally think is my moment in Rotary. If anybody asks me what is that moment in Rotary that you will always remember and cherish by, I think it is the 10th to the 14th experience in Chicago for the COL 2022.
Amazing. So we are capturing that moment indeed now. So did you miss any important event while you were there at the COL?
I don't think so. I think my entire effort, concentration was on this event alone, and there were no other events that were happening, fortunately. Yes, I am sorry. I think a very important event for my family. On the 13th was the graduation of my daughter, which I missed. But frankly, Vivek, I did not miss. Duan as well as the staff was so helpful. They said, Raju, you go online and see it online. be a virtual participant and you don't come for that COL session. That was a session which I was to take at 2 o'clock, and it was happening in the East Coast at 3 o'clock, which is exactly the time when I was to preside over that session. So I asked Duan whether he will preside over the session, and they were so nice because for them in the US, this is a great opportunity to attend a graduation of a child. So for them, it was a phenomenal opportunity which they didn't want me to miss. So I didn't miss it in that sense, though I missed being with her, hugging her when she got the graduation certificate.
What was that one comment that she gave you? The fact that you were there at the COL and not with her physically.
She's such a sweetheart of a daughter. She never said anything at all.
Wow, amazing.
And Priya was there and both the aunts were there.
Yeah, we know that our president-elect was there. Absolutely,
Yeah.
Absolutely. You were talking about some humorous moments, your experience at COL with respect to some anecdotes, memories.
There is something called a stripe card, which can be raised by the delegate, which is an indication that they want the debate to close. So on the first day, I took it very seriously, the stripe cards, etc. On the next day morning, when they raised the stripe card, they were waving the stripe card. So I said the effect of the previous evening is shown as the hands move with the stripe. And that created a good gel of me with them. And whenever I wanted a stripe card, when I wanted to end debate, I would just look around and they would know that I want a stripe card and they would raise the stripe card. So by which the debate would be closed. So I think these are part humors that happened out there.
And what about your evenings? Any special moments of the evenings that you would like to share with us?
I was isolated for the first 3 evenings. I could not go out because I was asked to isolate myself. Isolate in the sense not go out of the hotel. But otherwise, I had evenings that I went out on. And normally on the day the council ends, there is a council operations committee dinner that is hosted. And that is a fabulous evening that was hosted on the 14th to meet with all those who were part of the council operations team, the members at large, the Constitution and Bylaws Committee, the staff, and of course, the chair and the vice chair. Unfortunately, Ken had continued to test positive, so he could not come.
This is the COL where we have the incoming female RI president. And I'm sure as compared to your previous 2 COLs, this COL must have been a bit different. What's the difference that you think this diversity is going to bring to the Rotary world?
I don't think merely because Jennifer has become the president is going to make a difference. I think Rotary by itself is already keen on diversity and equity and inclusion. And they have been on this program for the last couple of years or more. Jennifer being there will only make it progress further as the first lady president of Rotary International. And Jennifer being what she is, knowing her for what she is, I'm sure she'll take this forward in a big leap. And that is seen also by her appointments that she has made to the executive committee. I don't want to share anything further at this stage, but I think this council, in fact, respected diversity, respected integrity, respected equity, and respected the flexibility given to the clubs. If there's any takeaway, it is that they always did not allow any enactment which would take away the flexibility of the club or the autonomy of the club in any manner whatsoever. They were very sure that that needs to be retained.
So just to close, any message that you would like to give to the future leaders of Rotary or people who are looking at this COL so closely, any message that you would like to give to everyone in the world?
I personally think that this is a great opportunity to present at the COL, to be representing your district. 2 things which I think are essential: greater participation in debate and also being fully prepared when you present an enactment. So that you need to know the bylaws well, you need to know your enactment well, and you need to not read what is already there on record with all the participants, but to argue on why the enactment should really be passed and why is this in the interest of Rotary in general for the whole world. So I would think it's a great opportunity, and I think every person who's capable of going must really prepare themselves, for this is an opportunity once in a lifetime. And I think it's an opportunity not to be missed, which I have missed. I don't think I'll ever be able to go as a representative to the COL again. I think it would be unfair to the others who are wanting to go. But I have been on the other side of the fence, sitting on the stage all the 3 years. But to be on the ground and participate and be there at the lectern with a red card or a green card and make a point of impact, I think is something that I am going to miss in my life, because I don't think I would ever file for being a representative of the COL after having been on the other side for 3 years. And as director, the 2025 COL, I'll again be a part of the COL, but as a director on the board.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, your passion, and all your responses. Your experiences, anecdotes, memories, and those lighter moments has made so much of difference. Thank you so very much. Gratitude to you. Our audience is completely going to love it and enjoy this entire conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vivek, for this opportunity to express myself. And thank you so much for what you do for public relations and for the bulletin, the e-bulletin that you come out with for our club. Amazing effort. I must congratulate you and the PR team.
Thank you so much. Wow, what a great moment I have today. I have with me Rotarian Manoj Desai, past Rotary International Director from RID 3060. Now that we have already heard and understood from Vice Chairman of this COL, Rotarian Raju Subramanian, it's time now for us to have some experiences from Rotarian Manoj Desai. This time he actually participated in the COL as a participant representing RI District 3060. Sir, how are you doing? It's such a pleasure to have you here.
It's my pleasure as well, because on a Sunday morning, doing something for Rotary is a great feeling, So thank you, Vivek, for inviting me. And of course, I know your questions are always difficult, but I will try my best to
answer. Thank you so much for taking time out on a Sunday morning. It's really such a great pleasure. So how was really your experience?
It was amazing, I would say, because I had attended 2016 Council as serving director and proposing enactments, also giving the strategic plan update in the inaugural session. It was a thrilling moment for me. But this time as a participant, after all the rigmarole and the preparations that Raju made us undergo, it was really, really awesome.
That's so great to hear. What, according to you, do you think were the key highlights of this COL as compared to what you attended in the past?
See, every COL begins on a different note. In 2016, I thought the way presentations were made, the way the then President Ravindran opened, there was an air of flexibility. There was an air to do something different, something new, and change with the changing times. This COL, people had seen the flexibility in last two COLs. And I felt that people were well prepared, not only Indian contingent, but everyone. And I always felt that they never wanted long debates, 2 opinions, 3 opinions, for and against. And then suddenly stripe card was coming up. Meaning thereby that we know all this. Let us vote and put it aside. So, 90 plus enactments done in a record time. Also, another thing was that chair, Ken Shupert, could not attend physically because of COVID. So, Raju and Duan, 2 co-chairs were there and both conducted COL, one after the other. So, if there were, first session was Raju always, second was Duan, third one was Raju after lunch, and fourth one was Duan. And it was a thrilling moment for all of us because President of Rotary International from India and Raju conducting the session, and he earned kudos from everyone. I must appreciate that fact. But I felt that people were well prepared and they wanted voting to put an end to the dialogue. Stripe cards were coming up faster than earlier COL.
So inspiring. And the fact that you said that RI President Shekhar Mehta from India, Vice Chairman Raju Subramanian from India, I think really a proud moment for you also as a past director.
Of course, certainly. And incoming trustee Bharat Pandya, and both the serving directors, Venki and Dr. Mahesh Kotbagi. So I think we were definitely on a different ground, on a different level.
So amazing to know. What was really different about this COL as compared to COLs of the past?
I felt that some people or some countries, I would not name them, but were going after words, changing the constitution, changing the words, and people were unhappy with that. Also, I felt in the name of flexibility, some countries wanted to bring in total new air, meaning thereby first year you are the president, second year you are the serving governor, third year you are the director. Why not? And people thrashed them by voting heavily against, because that is not flexibility. That is diluting the rules to a level that Rotary International, after 117 years, cannot tolerate that. So I thought that whatever came up new probably was not appreciated.
Wow.
diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, was used more often, but it was conveniently used to favor their arguments rather than the real spirit of DEI. So I realized that each word has meaning, but different connotations as far as overall picture is concerned, but people were tweaking around it in order to get to their point,
Yeah, I can really understand. So there must have been some moments which are not being convenient for such kind of people when, these kind of things really happened. Anything that you'd like to share connected to that?
One of the heavily debated topic was increase in dues.
Okay.
You wouldn't believe I was the second one in line wanting to speak for, but time never came to speak because, there were so many opinions coming. And then President himself, Shekhar Mehta, came up and spoke. And after that, nobody uttered a word and voting proved it that, okay, margin was less, but it was passed because President himself opined in favor of that is needed.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. Likewise, Jennifer Jones, President-elect, also came up and said something about IYE, Rotary and other things, that we have different plans. So don't bring them as a standing committee. IYE Youth Exchange Program, they wanted that should become a standing committee, which ideally should not. And after reassurance from President-elect, everybody understood that this is going to happen in a different way. So let's accept it. So I thought maturity of participants was certainly at a different level.
Wow.
And one opinion, and they definitely seem to change their mind and go for it.
Wow. Just to close, is there any message that you would like to give to the Rotary world from your side?
I personally feel that Indian contingent did very well this time because there was significant preparation thanks to Raju.
Wow.
He initiated the game, we supported him, and finally Venki and Dr. Mahesh both prepared that what is board stance and everything. So we were much better and our presentation was much better. But overall, I feel that when we go with probably Indian perception.
Right.
But once you listen to the word opinion, it is only your presence of mind that tells you whether it is good for Rotary or not. It is good for future or not.
Right.
Would it be brought again in the next COL and reverse? That should never happen, which sometimes happens. I thought that it was presence of mind all the time needed more to give your vote, because each vote is vital.
Absolutely.
And each participant, so much money Rotary is paying. And I thought this time it was well worth it because significant debate, but well-meaning transactions happened. People may opine in a different way, but I thought that sitting on the opposite side, I learned a lot, and I felt that presence of mind and preparation, if you have both, you will hit bullseye always. I would like to add that COL teaches you one of the finest lessons of Rotary's Parliament, and that is always be sharp and succinct. This is the need of the hour. Thank you.
Wow. What a closing. Thank you so much for such a marvelous inspiration that you've given to the entire Rotary world. I think this message should go to everyone right at the club level for people to understand how critical these two elements can really be if they have to really grow in community services as well as in other aspects of life as well.
Lastly, I would just add,
yes,
every session and I was transmitting the decisions to my district.
Oh, wow.
Council of Governors.
Okay.
And they were also thrilled. These are the changing times. We cannot wait for next MOP to come with the changes. It has to be there and then. So every day, every session, decisions were conveyed and world was knowing that, this is happening. So it was a matter of pride, for me also to serve well. And remember COL 2022.
What a great time I'm having now. It is such a pleasure for me to talk to PDG Sharat Jain from RI District 3012. How are you doing, sir?
Very good. And thanks, Vivek, for, this dialogue we are having today.
That's amazing. PDG Sharat Jain is also the DRFC for the District 3012, and he has represented his district as a participant at Chicago in the US. My first question to you is, how was your experience at the COL?
See, Vivek, it was really great experience in a sense that, there's very often you don't get a chance to understand how Rotary functions. And all of us keep wondering, once a dispute comes or some issue comes up, we start referring to MOP, we start referring to bylaws, but really don't understand who makes them, how they're drafted, how they are changed. So being at COL, you start understanding the depth of what happens and the amount of detailing people go into in drafting the legislative documents for Rotary, and which is basically a Bible.
That talks about the depth of experience that people actually get to understand once person reaches at the COL. Amazing. So what according to you was the highlight at this COL?
You see, highlight is moment you enter the hall, you start feeling as if you are representing as a member of parliament in a parliament. So, the whole setup is in a manner as if you are one of the members of parliament. And the way it is conducted is what makes you feel proud about Rotary, because, everything is told to you in advance. We are given all the enactments in advance to study. We get enough time to brood over it, think over it. And then when the time comes, there is an open debate. But what I like about that debate is almost everyone is given chance to present their views. But that chance does not mean people can exceed their brief. So there is also a control. And I think that's what excites you the most, that within that limited time you're given, you get a chance to present your view, people listen to you, and finally, based on that, we've taken decisions. And what I've seen is a lot of times, I myself, when I was reading the enactment, had a different view, but once we went through the debate, I changed my view. And this is the beauty of such forums, where there is a chance for open interaction, discussion, and debates, and then you take a decision which you feel is right in the sense of what is best for the organization.
Wow. So having had a vice chairman from India, do you think it brought any difference for you as an Indian yourself?
Yeah, it only brought us happiness seeing Raju standing there and conducting. And, there was unfortunate happening because the chairman, because of COVID at the last moment, could not be there. So virtually he was conducting the whole council. And it is obviously a proud moment, both on stage and off stage, when someone you know so well and someone you relate with is conducting it. And of course, Raju has his own skills. He's been a veteran and he did it impeccably well.
That's so great to know. So what, according to you, was different about this COL? I'm sure you have had past experiences listening to so many other leaders.
COLs in the past,
Yes.
which were all physical. Because of COVID, till the last moment, there were uncertainties. So there are some people who didn't come because they were not comfortable coming. There were others who couldn't reach because they couldn't get visas. So it was conducted in a hybrid mode. And I think what we saw there was the experience was seamless. So even though we were sitting there as participants, physically present, debating and listening, but people who were also virtually, the other representatives who were there virtually, they could get the same opportunity, and also voting was seamless. So whether you voted as a virtual delegate representative or you voted as a physical representative, there was no difference. So it was an amazing experience of seeing the two things working together in absolute unison.
That's so much of an inspiration in such a short fashion that you've really spoken about. So just to close, any message that you would like to give to all those future leaders or to the Rotary world in general from your side?
You see, my only message is, as we grow in Rotary, we should start seeing the various aspects of Rotary. And this is one of the most important aspects, because this really determines how Rotary functions today and is in future. So I would really encourage all the past governors who are eligible to participate as COL representatives from their district to aspire for it, get it, and then participate.
Wow, that's so amazing. Well, with this, thank you so very much for your time and sharing such deep thoughts. I think it's really been amazing to spend these moments with you. Thank you so much.
Vivek, thank you for inviting me to your talk, and I really enjoyed it.
Wow, I'm so excited to meet PDG Rotarian Mary Berge, who is COL representative from RI District 7305. She represented from her district. First of all, thank you so much, Mary, for taking time out this morning for you and this evening for me. I think this is really amazing to see you. Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
There's a common connect between you and me. I have also been a GSE team member. I went to District 1980, Switzerland.
Oh, in Switzerland. Wow. And I went to Sweden. That's
Yes.
wonderful.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So nice to meet another GSC team member from a different part of the world. Obviously, you have reached a different scale of height in the world of Rotary, and I'm sure Rotary will feel really proud to have someone like you who comes from a very strong GSC background and who's rising up in Rotary. So that's absolutely amazing and thrilling.
Thank you.
With this, it will be interesting to know how was really your experience.
Well, it was quite unique, actually. I had also represented in 2016, and so this was actually a little bit different because they gave us many of the resolutions in advance to discuss and work on, and then actually vote on online in advance of the council. So this council was about a day shorter. And I would say moved along a bit more efficiently. The thing that I think that did not change between 2016 and 2022, the best part about being at this council is that you bring together these vast cultures with vast ideas about how we should be moving our organization forward. And being able to do this together live in person gives us the opportunity to really deeply discuss with these vast cultures and people from all over the world why one particular part of the world thinks this needs to be this way, or why this particular part of the world doesn't, and to gain perspective on what would be best for our great organization and how to move it forward in these ever-changing times. So for me, that was really, always has been, almost any Rotary event is just bringing people together from all over the world to consult and to think together.
Wow, I think that's such an amazing thought that you've really shared. So what, according to you, were the key highlights of this COL?
So I think there were two things in particular that I was strongly hoping for, and they did pass. Strangely, I was pro the dues increase. You know, with our pandemic and COVID and the war right now with Ukraine and Russia, everything has skyrocketed in terms of our economic costs. And our organization has to stay abreast of that and has to be, of course, good stewardship of funding and of our dues and such. But we also have to keep up with what's happening in the world. So I felt that it was important to make that dues shift. And yes, as much as no one wants to spend more money, the value that we get in our organization for a fairly small amount of money, I think is just enormous. So I was actually felt that the dues enactment needed to move forward, and we did vote for that. The other interesting enactment, I think it was 2271, and this was to provide for the administration of clubs differently on a pilot project. And I was particularly interested in this enactment because I think our structure and our organization has to begin to look at possible other ways to do things. Mm-hmm. And what an opportunity that we had in Zone 8, that these Rotarians are already sort of doing this, and they wanted to make it an official research project so that the organization could learn from them, whether it succeeds or fails. The amount of information that we could pull from a pilot project like that could be life-changing for our organization or not. I mean, again, if it's a failure, we say, okay, don't try that again. So that one in particular, I felt I was very strongly in support of, and very glad that went through. And I think that could actually be something in the future that's going to be real great information for organization, and we're going to be talking about for a long time.
According to you, this was really a big game changer and big highlight of this particular COL. That sounds so amazing.
I think so. I think it could be a game changer. And I do think it was a highlight. There were other things that seem to come up every time. There are many enactments that sort of just keep coming back. Slight wording changes. You know, people want certain committees put back into the structure of our organization when we're really trying to streamline the structure and how we run the organization. Some people think we should, no, put back in, youth exchange committee. We need a Rotaract committee, an Interact committee, all these committees, which kind of muddies everything up. So we've streamlined our organization to keep costs down in so many ways. And so certain things keep coming back.
Oh, that's also something interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I was not for and not in support of, and if this came up in several councils, is to make our written magazine, our printed magazine, optional. And I'm really against this because I think our written magazine, our printed version, is probably one of our greatest public image resources.
Right.
I mean, they end up in hospitals and libraries, public education institutions. They're left everywhere. And so people begin to see the Rotary magazine and they get a picture of what we're like. So it not only is a great public image tool, it's a wonderful potential membership tool. So I spoke against that at the council and it did not pass. So I was very happy about that.
Oh, wow. That sounds so amazing. And I'm able to resonate with this thought of yours so much. Let me just give a classic example. A few weeks back, I was there at our RCC. In fact, apparently in the May issue of Rotary News, we have got beautiful coverage connected to RCC because we have completed 25 years of our service in terms of our RCC projects. So there, exactly what you said, we've been doing that. We always ensure that we take our Rotary News, give it to those young children so that not only will they improve their English communication in the villages, but they also get exposure to the plethora of Rotary projects that's happening across different geographies. So I'm completely with you. And I'm glad that, as you rightly said, it did not pass. Amazing. So Mary, what was different about this COL as compared to whatever you have attended in the past or your earlier experiences through other leaders and stuff?
Again, I think, we saved a lot of money and time by voting in advance on a big, large chunk of resolutions. I mean, that saved our organization a ton of money by reducing the COL by one full day. So that was the biggest change. Other than that, I think that was primarily it. Just it was shorter, more financially efficient. But other than that, there was the same thing I experienced the first time, this just sense of fellowship and coming together with people from every single one of our districts, just about. Well, the other thing that was slightly different, of course, is that there were about 175 participants actually on Zoom.
Hybrid.
So the virtual and in-person component was not there in 2016. So that was obviously different. So some people could not come in because of visas, because of COVID restrictions, etc. So now we were actually able to have a portion of those folks there on Zoom participating and voting.
Wow.
And it worked brilliantly. Only one time did we have a technology snag.
Wow.
Otherwise, it worked brilliantly. So that was very different than 2016.
So also tell me, as I understand, the chairman of the COL couldn't come because of ill health, and suddenly a vice chairman had to play that key role, and that is where past district governor Raju Subramanian came into the forefront. So tell me something. We always talk about leadership. You yourself are probably a coach and a mentor to so many people. You talk about leadership yourself, Mary. What do you think this particular situation really brought to the forefront in terms of leadership skills?
Raju, I call him my brother. Okay, he and I we trained together at International Assembly, and I just love Raju. And he was really funny up there too. At the appropriate times, he could put in a little bit of humor that lightened everything up. And so he did brilliantly for being thrown into the mix last minute. Our organization was prepared for anything. And when somebody got sick, they were immediately ushered off to isolate. We actually, in our badges, wore tracers. So there were these little tiny buttons about this thick inside of our badge. So if you, let's say you were there and I were there, and if you got sick with COVID and I had been around you for more than about 5 minutes, my tracer would alert the staff that you and I had been in contact long enough for me to potentially have gotten COVID, and I would be ushered off to go get tested.
Wow.
So the technology and the effort that our organization went to keep us safe was enormous, and it worked because when someone got sick, they were isolated and they were prepared. Raju was prepared. You would have never known he was not slated to do this, and he did it so effectively and so efficiently, and I just loved seeing him up there. So bravo to our organization for being ready for anything.
That sounds absolutely brilliant. And one thought that comes to my mind, basis your responses, that this is where agility typically comes in. We always talk about agility of organizations for them to sustain the next 100 years, 50 years, 500 years. And the fact that Rotary has seamlessly aligned itself to evolving technology that speaks volumes about our organization. So amazing.
Yes. And I think a good leader has to be flexible and agile. So just witnessing that, inspired me.
Wow. So just to close, is there any message that you would like to give to the future leaders of Rotary, other people who probably aspire to get into something as prestigious as COL?
Absolutely. Many, many moons ago when I first joined and I heard about this COL, it just sounded terribly boring and legal and logistic and cumbersome. But when I was selected to go and my first time and second time there, the joy of the experience, the way that it stretched my mind, the information that I obtained about my great organization in advance to study all of the enactments gave me such a greater appreciation for Rotary and for our foundation that I would encourage anybody who is at all hesitant to rethink that, because you will leave there a better leader, a better Rotary leader, and probably inspire others. So go for it.
Wow. With this, thank you so very much, Mary, for your time. I think engaging with you has been thoroughly inspirational for me.
My
and I'm sure
pleasure.
it's gonna be equally for the viewers as well. Thank you so much.